I am gaming. I am gaming. I am gaming podcast.
Hey everybody, my name is Ivica. Thank you so much for being on the latest episode of I Am Gaming podcast. This is a podcast about the video game industry, entrepreneurship, gaming nostalgia, and many more cool things, including direct air capture of CO2 that I find to be in the same realm of business and creative ventures. In episode 104, I'm going to discuss the project I mentioned in my previous episode, which is directly tied to the process of, DAC or direct air capture of carbon dioxide, that really harmful, really problematic gas that is creating the global climate change issue, greenhouse effect, and many more terrible things that are basically destroying our planet and our way of life, and which will be an even growingly more exponentially bigger problem in the decades to come. Before I get into that, a big, huge, enormous thanks goes to all my Patreon supporters. You really make this podcast possible. Please, everyone else, check out my Patreon page on Patreon. And if you can, support this podcast and my wacky projects with $1 or $2. I would appreciate any amount of money you can pledge on a monthly basis. And if you can do that, hell, you'll have my eternal gratitude. Now, when it comes to the process of measuring the direct air capture of CO2, I noticed that there is no singular point online on any website that is providing you with something of a world meter or some similar measurement that shows how much air capture technology is currently active in the world, and which presents that number as a clear and precise information where you can see this number of factories or industrial facilities that capture carbon from air are currently working in the world, and they capture this amount of carbon dioxide. Instead, I decided to create one myself. It's called CO2 Direct Capture Meter, and it's at blogspot.com. There is the link is in the description below, so check it out, where I created a simplest possible website I could imagine on Blogspot, to be honest, where a fact of the amount of CO2 being captured is currently presented. I also found this amount on a different kind of a website. That website presents the same information, and it gives out the amount of carbon that is being captured. The same website is of course marked as a source on my website, and I plan to create a better website which will showcase the same information on the same page. So presently there are 19 direct air capture plants that are operating or active across the world, and they are capturing a really small amount of CO2, but still a lot more direct air capture plants are planned, and I hope to feature them as well on this website. Again, it's a really small thing, it's a really side project, but still it's something that I think is going to be useful for anyone who simply wants to find out, hey, how much carbon are we capturing right now from air? They go to my website, they find out. I'll also plan to include additional focus elements like how much CO2 is being captured in terms of, for example, how many plants like trees can do the same job, and what are the future plants and future facilities that will use direct air capture. It's a small thing, I know, but it's still something that I'm interested in, and I want to develop slowly and gradually over time. Like all of my ventures, to be honest, all of them work in the same way, of really small amounts of effort over a long period of time. So check out CO2 Direct Air Capture Meter at blogspot.com. And that's all for this episode. I'm going to continue following up with this project whenever I have any changes or updates. Until then, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for sticking on this podcast. If you didn't already, please consider subscribing. Please consider checking out my Patreon page and supporting me. And that's all for this episode. I'll see you in exactly 7 days on episode 105. Until then, have a great day and bye bye.